The issue of the quality of fraternal dialogue has emerged as a central theme and a significant difficulty in the lives of friars. Some of you have expressed that in your small groups here. I'm more convinced than ever the need for us to confront head-on the challenges and opportunities that crises provide to each of us and to the worldwide order. I'm more convinced now than ever that we can help one another find creative ways of dealing with the crises that come our way. If we can help one another develop effective strategies for promoting a quality of dialogue and interpersonal exchange of actual life experiences, sharing of faith, sharing of our sufferings, our moments of discouragement, sharing our hopes and our joys. We can do this during times of prayer, meals, local house chapters. And we can also perhaps think about other methods borrowed from outside of our immediate experience, but that have proven effective, all with the common aim of helping to create conditions for the growth and deepening of our humanity, our faith, our vocation, our engagement with the world as a community of brothers united by our one common vocation. In a 2012 study on the situation of the order, one of the most striking discoveries that emerged was the lack of trust the brothers felt that they had in one another, the lack of trust they had in their ministers called to serve and accompany them. The friars spoke and continue to speak about a general fear, a fear to reveal their weaknesses and difficulties to one another in fraternity. Friars living in the same fraternity, the same province, the same custody, the same foundation, feel as though they cannot open their hearts to one another, open their hearts to their local or provincial custodial minister, either because of some inner block impediment, because of some memory of some past failure to be respected, or simply because they never learned how to do this. Friars pass weeks, months, even years, suffering as though they were locked up in prison in the fraternity, feeling alone. Over the course of time, these feelings can lead to a deepening of isolation, destroying whatever active bonds of brotherhood that might have existed at the beginning of the vocational journey. In fact, nearly half of the respondents in that same questionnaire in 2012 indicated that they experienced serious difficulty in dealing with one another at their local fraternal level, a lack of quality of interpersonal communications. This translates into the lived experience of fraternities where brothers superficially interact with one another, but where there is a general lack of fraternal transparency. I have no ready-made solutions to this crisis that's affecting the universal fraternity, nor does the general definitorium. We need to help one another develop new tools in order to build trust and confidence among ourselves. Two necessary conditions for the survival of our personal vocation, the vocation of the entire order. As Brother Alois indicated yesterday in his talk, we need to learn how to allow ourselves to be accompanied by our brothers, by our ministers, the guardian provincial custos, by our brothers in fraternity. We need to learn how to give ourselves and to give one another permission to let our guard down and allow someone to come and meet us in our brokenness. In whatever personal form of crisis we might be experiencing in our lives, to allow our brothers to accompany us in these moments, also in moments of success and joy. If left unattended, the isolation that brothers experience, the crushing feeling of having no one around with whom to share the burden that comes with normal life, and with moments of disillusionment, sadness, loss, physical diminishment, or other causes, will slowly erode our self-confidence our trust in God's presence in our lives, and our trust that God is present in the life of our brothers, we will face the threat of death. Death of our hope, death of our joy, death of our conviction and passion for the gospel life that God has called us to lead as lesser brothers. For a number of brothers currently living in the order, and for those who have made the decision to leave, the only choice that made any sense was that of choosing survival over perseverance. Ci parliamo tanto di perseveranza, senza parlare di sopravvivenza. Survival is so fundamental, so instinctual, it will always win out if we can only find another way to deal with these different crises that we experience in our lives. While visiting entities in Europe and Latin America these past 2 months, I have met with 5 brothers experiencing deep crises in their lives. Each of these 5 falls within the group of under 10. Listening to their stories, 3 constants or themes have emerged and form part of a common narrative. First, the friars related to me their discomfort or inability to speak with their provincial, their guardian, members of their local fraternity about the crises they were experiencing. It was a question of trust. They did not believe that by entrusting their personal story of crisis into the hands of the minister, guardian, or brothers, they would be respected, accepted, and accompanied with love and understanding. I find myself wondering whether they really trusted themselves, or for that matter, whether they truly trusted God. This inability to dialogue about the survival of their human and Franciscan life and vocation with the brothers of the order led some of them to the conclusion, right or wrong, that they have been abandoned and left to sort out things on their own. This feeling of isolation, a second element of the common narrative of crisis, led them to the conclusion, or is leading them to the conclusion, that no one really cares about them. No one even notices they are suffering. No one expresses a willingness to reach out and accompany them in their moment of crisis. We could ask the question about the true source of this feeling of being isolated and abandoned, whether it was the result of their own ability to open their heart to other friars and ask for help, or the consequence of an inability of the friars in the local fraternity to be attentive, caring, and daring to enter into the lives of one of the brothers whom they see as in difficulty. To dare to enter into the life of another person, to dare to engage in serious and sustained dialogue, requires a willingness to come face to face with one's own crises and limitations, one's own sins. As you might well imagine, if this feeling of isolation persists, a brother can easily arrive at the conclusion that his only option for survival is to lead the Franciscan evangelical life. At this point, each of us must ask the question, is there no other possible outcome? But if we ask this question, we must always also be willing to ask another question. What price am I willing to pay to ensure that my life and in my local fraternity, that there is a minimum of quality of interpersonal communications, a minimum quality of dialogue about things that really matter for my life and the life of my brothers? Some of you present here related to me that you find yourselves living fraternities where the quality of prayer and fraternal sharing leaves much to be desired. My first question is, for how long will you be able to sustain this absence of spiritual and fraternal dialogue before you enter into crisis, before you crash and burn? And the second question, for how long will the Franciscan evangelical life be able to survive? The order of Friars Minor. If each of us does not make the personal decision to make a difference, to risk our lives by placing them into God's hands and into the hands of one another, our brothers. Just as an interesting element, something not to discourage you, but kind of to wake everyone up. Of the 150 friars who participated in the 2012 gathering under 10 in Mexico, approximately 12% have left the order. 12%. 12%, di quelli che hanno partecipato all'incontro nel 2012, under 10, questo incontro hanno lasciato l'ordine. I say this not to alarm you, but to call your attention to the essential role of dialogue in being able to overcome the different crises you and I face, or are facing. Authentic spiritual and fraternal dialogue, the daily sharing of our lives with one another as part of the experience of ongoing formation, are the only means available to us to come to a deeper experience of peace, joy, and freedom that God offered to St. Francis and that God is offering to each of us. You will all receive this text. It's in 3 languages. You'll receive it electronically later on today. But I think, very importantly, this is something which I think is a crisis for the entire order, and not just for our order. I'd like to offer you, though, 2 building stones, or maybe 3. One of the building stones in the process of escaping from prison and rebuilding one's life and vocation is the rediscovery of one's relationship with God. Friendship is essential for all of life. For disciples of Christ, those who have answered God's call to enter into Franciscan religious life, our relationship, our friendship with God and Jesus is absolutely essential. And this goes for friars under 10, under 20, under 30, under 40, under 50, under 60, under death.